The washing room was dark, lit only by the tiny green light blinking on the dryer. It clicked and hummed softly as it spun, a steady rhythm that filled the small space like a secret heartbeat. I gripped the cold edge of the washing machine, my palms pressing hard against the metal until it bit into my skin. His warm breath brushed the back of my neck, sending shivers racing down my spine. His chest pressed firmly against my back, solid and real in a way that made my legs feel weak. One of his strong hands held my waist, fingers digging in just enough to anchor me, while the other slipped slowly under my shirt, tracing warm paths across my skin as if he had been dreaming of this moment for years. I could barely breathe. My heart hammered so loudly I was sure he could hear it. The air felt thick, heavy with the scent of detergent, fabric softener, and something far more dangerous, him. When he moved closer, slower this time, pushing deeper, a soft gasp escaped my lips. I had to place both hands on top of the dryer just to stay upright. My shirt was bunched up around my chest now, his warm skin flush against mine. Fog formed on the black plastic surface from my ragged breaths as I bit my lip hard, trying to stay silent. The hallway outside was quiet, but the tension crackling between us roared louder than thunder. I didn't tell him to stop. I couldn't speak. Every small movement he made sent waves through me, worse and better at the same time. I pushed back against him instinctively, chasing the feeling. This wasn't supposed to happen. Not here, not with him. Yet here we were, tangled in the dark while the dryer kept spinning like nothing was wrong. I had stopped making plans long ago. Life had taught me that plans were fragile things, easily shattered. He was Mark, my husband's closest friend since they were young boys. I had been part of their world for 15 years. Backyard barbecues, birthday parties, surprise weekend visits that always felt warm and normal. He helped us move into this house, carrying boxes and laughing with my husband while I unpacked dishes. He painted our bedroom walls upstairs with us on a hot Saturday afternoon, his shirt sticking to his back with sweat. When I was sick with the flu 2 winters ago, feverish and miserable, he showed up with hot soup and medicine, checking on me quietly while my husband was at work. He had always been there, reliable, kind, part of the furniture of our life. So how did I end up bent over the washing machine, shame and guilt thick on my tongue, while his body moved against mine? I'm 38. I have a beautiful home most people would envy, 2 wonderful children who light up my days, a husband who still kisses my cheek every morning before leaving for work. From the outside, we look perfect, stable, predictable, safe. But safety has a hidden cost. When people stop truly seeing you, something inside begins to wither. I had become invisible long ago. It wasn't supposed to be like this. I didn't set out to notice how Mark lingered after parties, helping me clean while my husband had already gone to bed. I didn't plan the butterflies that fluttered in my stomach when he carried groceries inside or leaned close behind me to reach something in the fridge. It wasn't deliberate flirting. It was years of quiet glances, small kindnesses, and silences that grew heavier and sharper with time until they developed teeth. That evening had started like any other. A small gathering of friends. Laughter, good food, music playing softly. My husband drank too much wine and headed upstairs early, mumbling about being tired. Mark stayed to help clean up, just like always. We moved around the kitchen together, joking about old stories, and familiar song playing from my phone. My hair was in a messy bun, and I still wore the pretty floral dress I had chosen for the guests. I turned to hand him a dish towel. His hand didn't take it. Instead, his fingers wrapped gently around my wrist. His eyes met mine, dark, conflicted, full of something he clearly didn't want to feel but couldn't deny. I didn't pull away. The air between us shifted instantly. The towel dropped to the floor, forgotten. One thing led to another. A step closer. His hand on my waist, my back against the wall. Then the washing room door closing softly behind us. The rest happened in a haze of need and years of unspoken longing. The dryer suddenly beeped loudly, jolting us both. Upstairs, a floorboard creaked. I jumped, fear shooting through me like ice water. Mark's hands tightened on my waist, holding me steady. We froze, bodies still joined, breathing shallow and fast. He was still inside me, both of us trembling. I should leave now, I whispered, voice barely audible. I know, he replied, just as softly. But neither of us moved. The risk made everything sharper, more intense. We had danced around this danger for so long that when we finally fell, it felt inevitable. He slipped out eventually, adjusted his clothes, and left through the back door 5 minutes later. I didn't walk him out. I sat on the edge of the dryer, legs shaking, body still buzzing with life in places that had felt numb for months. What would you do if the only person who made you feel truly seen was the one man you could never be allowed to want? The hardest part? I wasn't shocked it happened. Deep down, I had been waiting. And the second hardest part? I didn't know if I wanted it to stop. After showering and re-washing the clothes to erase any trace of his scent, I stood in the hallway staring at our bedroom door. My husband snored loudly inside. I was still trembling, skin flushed, and I felt no regret, only a strange, frightening clarity. If you've ever lived under the same roof with someone and still felt completely invisible, you understand exactly how this happens. The days after blurred into routine. I woke at 6:45 every morning, set the coffee maker, cooked eggs, toast, and fruit for the kids. My husband sat at the table scrolling his phone, offering little more than grunts unless the news caught his attention. The children rushed in sleepy-eyed, chattering about school. I moved through it all like a ghost, needed but unseen. Once I had taken pride in being the heart of the home. Now it felt like I had become part of the wallpaper. Mark showed up 2 days later with a spare part for the leaking kitchen sink. No call beforehand. He never needed one. He was family. My hands were soapy when I opened the door. Morning sunlight streamed across the counter. I couldn't meet his eyes directly. "Hey," he said quietly, voice careful. "The sink is still leaking," I replied, keeping my tone neutral. He knelt under the counter to work. I stayed nearby, wiping surfaces that didn't need cleaning, watching the way his shoulders moved under his shirt, listening to the familiar scrape of his boots on the tile. When he stood, he looked straight at me, no smile. "I've been thinking about you," he said. "More than I should." My throat tightened. The fridge hummed. A dog barked down the street. Why didn't it feel wrong? "I don't know what this is," I whispered. He nodded. "If you say it was a mistake, I'll believe you and walk away." But I didn't say it. He went downstairs to check the pipes, moving through our house with the ease of someone who belonged. That normalcy terrified me most of all. Mark had always been the helpful one, stringing Christmas lights, taking out trash when my husband forgot, fixing leaks and broken railings without being asked. Now every small interaction carried new weight, fingers brushing in the hallway, loaded silences. The memory of his hand on the back of my neck in that dim room. I wanted more. Our marriage was 16 years old. I met my husband at 22. We built everything together. 2 babies, a home, a life of sacrifices. Somewhere along the way, I stopped being touched like a woman. I became schedules, meals, laundry, logistics. Mark made me feel remembered. It wasn't that I didn't love my husband. I did, in the comfortable, worn, thin way you love an old sweater. But comfort had left me starving for touch, for desire, for being seen. The tension built again through small, dangerous moments. A late-night text about my forgotten hair clip. Him returning it silently, fingers lingering when he handed me a tool. Visits with excuses, screen door, package mix-up. A Tuesday afternoon when my husband was out, lemonade glasses and fingers that refused to let go quickly. "You look tired," he said, eyes full of concern and heat. We didn't touch for a week after that, but the air grew heavier. I caught myself dressing nicer before he came over. He noticed everything. Then came the garage, the note, the workbench, the desperate, controlled collision of years of restraint. His hands careful yet urgent, my legs around his waist, tools clanging to the floor. The fear when a car door slammed nearby. The aftermath, shaky legs, flushed skin, whispered denials neither of us believed. That evening I overcompensated at dinner, smiling too brightly. My husband noticed nothing real. Mark laughed outside with the others as if nothing had changed. But everything had. I stood alone in the kitchen for nearly an hour after Mark's wife left. The coffee I had offered her growing cold on the counter. Her words kept echoing. "I think something happened. I know my husband, and something important is broken inside him." She hadn't accused me directly, but the way her eyes stayed fixed on the floor tiles told me everything. She suspected. Maybe not me specifically yet, but the circle was closing. My hands trembled as I wiped the already clean counter. The house felt too quiet, too fragile, like glass about to shatter. Upstairs, the children were playing video games, their laughter floating down like a reminder of everything I had to lose. My husband would be home soon. I forced myself to breathe normally, to move like the same woman who had cooked breakfast that morning. That night, dinner was tense. My husband kept glancing at me over his plate, his eyes narrower than usual. "You've been distracted lately," he said suddenly. I nearly dropped my fork. "Everything okay with you?" I smiled the practiced smile I had perfected over 16 years. "Just tired. The usual." He nodded but didn't look convinced. Later, while I folded laundry in the living room, I caught him watching me from the doorway. No words, just watching. The silence between us had never felt so loud. I avoided my phone for hours, but the pull was magnetic. When I finally checked, there was one message from Mark, sent at 8:42 p.m. "We need to talk." "Garage tomorrow? Noon." I deleted it immediately, heart racing. I knew I should reply no, or better yet, not reply at all. Instead, I stared at the blank screen until my eyes burned. The next morning passed in a haze of routine. School drop-off, grocery shopping, cleaning the bathrooms. I changed my clothes 3 times before noon, finally settling on a simple blue sundress that made me feel pretty without looking obvious. At 11:55, I told the kids I was going out to the garage to organize some boxes. My hands were sweating as I opened the side door. Mark was already there, leaning against the workbench. The same one where we had lost control last time. His jaw was tight, eyes shadowed. The moment the door clicked shut behind me, the air thickened. "We can't keep doing this," he said first, voice low and rough. "Sarah suspects something. She's been asking questions, crying at night." I stepped closer despite myself. "My husband is watching me too. He asked last night if something was wrong." We stood there, inches apart, breathing the same charged air. The smell of motor oil, dust, and old wood wrapped around us. I could see the conflict in his eyes, the same war I fought every waking minute. Guilt, desire, love for our families, and this unstoppable hunger. "I should stay away," he whispered. But his hand reached out and brushed a strand of hair from my face. The touch was gentle, almost reverent. But every time I try, I end up right here. I closed my eyes, leaning into his palm. "I don't want you to stay away." That was all it took. He pulled me against him, kissing me with a desperation that stole my breath. This time there was no slow build-up. We were both too raw, too aware that time was running out. His hands slid under my dress, lifting me onto the workbench again. Tools rattled. My back pressed against the pegboard. I wrapped my legs around him tightly, fingers digging into his shoulders as he entered me in one smooth, deep motion. We moved together in silence, except for our ragged breathing and the small, involuntary sounds we couldn't hold back. It wasn't just physical anymore. Every thrust carried months, no years, of loneliness, of being unseen, of quiet yearning. I buried my face in his neck, tasting salt on his skin, letting the pleasure and pain mix until I couldn't tell them apart. "Mark!" I gasped his name like a prayer and a confession. He held me closer, forehead pressed to mine. "I know, baby, I know." The release came hard and fast for both of us. We clung to each other afterward, trembling, unwilling to let go. For a few precious minutes, the rest of the world disappeared. There was only his heartbeat against mine, the warmth of his arms, and the terrifying certainty that this was real. But reality always returns. We cleaned up quickly. He helped me straighten my dress, his fingers lingering on my waist one last time. "This has to be the last time," he said, voice breaking slightly. "For our families, for everyone." I nodded, tears stinging my eyes. "I know." Neither of us believed it completely. The following days were torture. Mark stopped coming over entirely. No more casual visits, no borrowed tools, no waves from the driveway. The silence felt like a punishment. At home, my husband's suspicion grew like a shadow. He started coming home earlier from work. He checked his phone less openly. One evening, he asked me directly, "Has Mark been around lately?" My heart nearly stopped. "Not that I've noticed. Why?" He shrugged. "Just asking." But his eyes said more. That night, when he reached for me in bed for the first time in months, I froze. His touch felt foreign, almost clinical. I closed my eyes and let it happen. But my mind was in the garage, on the washing machine, anywhere but here. Afterward, while he slept, I cried silent tears into my pillow. I threw myself into being the perfect wife and mother. Elaborate dinners, helping with homework, date night suggestions. My husband seemed pleased, but the effort exhausted me. Every kind gesture felt like compensation for the secret I carried. The guilt was there now, heavy and constant, but it still couldn't overpower the way Mark had made me feel alive. 2 weeks passed. Then, on a rainy Thursday afternoon, Mark's wife came over again. This time she didn't wear sunglasses. Her eyes were red and swollen. We sat at the kitchen table with coffee neither of us drank. I confronted him, she said quietly. He denied everything at first. Then he cried, said it was a mistake, that it didn't mean anything. She looked at me then. Really looked. Do you know anything about this, Priya? The use of my name felt like an accusation. My throat closed. For one terrifying second, I considered confessing everything. Instead, I reached across the table and squeezed her hand. I'm so sorry you're going through this. If I hear anything, I'll tell you. She believed me, or at least she needed to. That evening, I texted Mark for the first time in days. We need to end this. For good. His reply came instantly. Meet me one last time. Washing room. Tonight at 11, please. I knew it was reckless. My husband was home. The kids were asleep. But at 10:55, I slipped downstairs in my robe, telling myself I was only going to say goodbye properly. The washing room was dark again, only the tiny blinking light. Mark was waiting. We didn't speak. He simply pulled me into his arms and kissed me like a man drowning. We made love slowly this time against the washing machine, with tears mixing with sweat. Every touch felt like both hello and goodbye. I love you, he whispered against my neck as he moved inside me. I shouldn't, but I do. I came apart in his arms, whispering the same dangerous truth back to him. Afterward, we held each other for a long time. This was the last time, I said, voice shaking. He nodded against my hair. I know. He left through the back door into the rain. I stood there alone, fixing my robe, trying to steady my breathing. When I turned to go upstairs, my husband was standing in the hallway. He didn't say anything at first, just stared at me with eyes full of pain and betrayal. The silence stretched unbearably. I knew, he said finally, voice hoarse. I didn't want to believe it, but I knew. Tears spilled down my cheeks. I'm sorry. He didn't yell. He didn't throw things. He simply turned and walked back upstairs. The quiet click of our bedroom door closing felt louder than any scream. The next few days were hell. Conversations in hushed tones after the kids slept. Tears, anger, long silences. Mark and his wife were apparently going through the same nightmare. Our perfect little neighborhood facade was cracking. I won't lie and say I regret everything. Some part of me still doesn't. Mark made me feel seen when I had become invisible even to myself. He reminded me I was a woman, not just a wife and mother. But the cost was devastating. We are trying to rebuild now, both couples. Therapy sessions, honest, painful talks. Mark and I don't speak anymore. We avoid each other at neighborhood events. The looks we once shared are gone, replaced by careful distance and lingering sadness. Some nights I still lie awake, remembering the clicking dryer, warm breath on my neck, and the way desire felt like coming back to life. I miss feeling wanted that deeply. But I also look at my children's faces and my husband's tired, hurt eyes, and I choose them. Or at least I'm trying to. Life has returned to its routines. 6:45 wake-ups, school lunches, evening kisses on the cheek. But nothing feels quite the same. I am no longer invisible. The price of being seen was almost losing everything. And sometimes, in the quiet moments, I wonder if I would do it all over again. The answer scares me more than I can admit.